Oh, thank you for recording, Lynette. And Alice said that they've had curry from Thai Garden in Northampton, hasn't cooked anything else. Excited to learn. So excited to have you. So today, I know a couple people mentioned Thai food, and one more here. Elizabeth and Son have eaten many different dishes throughout the country, but Justin and the kids have not, and we're looking forward to trying. Great. So excited. So today's dish, we're making a larb salad, which it really translates to meat salad. And some of you are not going to be eating meat. I know some folks have tofu as their protein today, and we're going to walk through that too. And larb is actually the national dish of Laos. It's a low-end dish, which is right near Thailand. And so this dish, though, even though it's from Laos, has migrated all over Southeast Asia. So it is the national dish of Laos, but you'll find many variations of it. And today we're kind of making a variation between Thai and Laoan larb. And it's traditionally served with papaya salad, which is basically raw papaya that is unmature, shredded with similar sauces that we're going to be using today. So if you're interested, you can Google that or send me a message. I'd love to tell you all about it because it's such a good dish. And it can be made with ground chicken, ground lamb, ground pork, beef, fish, tofu, mushrooms even. So there's lots of variations for this dish. You could also use ground seafood like ground shrimp. And the key components are fish sauce, or in the vegetarian, we'll be using soy sauce. P.S. There are a lot of different types of fish sauce that are vegetarian. They're just fake. And then lime juice, fresh herbs, chilies, assorted vegetables, steamed rice, and then I always serve it with lettuce or you could also do cabbage leaves, either steamed or raw. The beef option today is local ground beef, and as I said, the tofu option, it's as local as we could get tofu. And feel free, please, to cater this recipe to your needs. If you're not a fan of spice, skip the pepper or maybe just use ground pepper flakes. You can, if you're nervous about fish sauce, use a little soy sauce and or maybe a little bit extra salt. And the fish sauce can be stinky, but don't knock it before you try it. It's really delicious. It's a huge staple in food in Southeast Asia. If you need to plug your nose, go for it. But I promise you, it's pretty good. It's actually something I could drink. I've grown very fond of it. So I love it. Let's get started, guys. Lynette, if you can take over adding people, that would be super helpful for me. We're going to start with our rice. Everyone should have received boxed rice, so you're welcome to use that. And what you're going to do is get that started. It should take only 8 minutes. I'm actually not, I don't have boxed. Oh, someone. Thank you. I don't have boxed rice, so I'm going to start mine. Please put a timer on. It's really important that you have a timer because we are going to be kind of ignoring this rice for a little bit. So you're doing lots of stuff in between. So time that out. And it doesn't have to stay hot. That's why we're doing it first. It can be served cold, that rice. So it doesn't matter if it cools down a lot. So let's get our rice popping. And one other thing that you might want to do if you already got your rice started, is that you can turn on a tea kettle with like a half cup of water, or maybe put a half cup of water in the microwave, or just, if you can't do either of those, then fill it up with as hot as the tap gets. And that's going to be for our onions. So I'm going to turn on my tea kettle to get a little bit of water hot, and I'm going to start my rice. If you're not using boxed rice, I always use jasmine rice. It's a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 parts water to 1 part rice. I usually boil the water, pour in the rice, and then once the rice is in and it comes to a boil, I'll lower it all the way to almost as low as my pot can go for 20 minutes. So here I'm getting that ready. And my tea kettle is already warming up quite a bit. Okay, now for the chopping, the fun part starts. So we're going to be using an onion, either red or white is fine. You can use a little of each if you want to. I'm going to use red onion because I love how the colors come out in this dish. It's the red is, or purplish red is so beautiful. And we're going to dice about 1 cup of this onion, and we're going to slice 1/4 to 1/2 cup, depending on how much you want as a topping. So the diced is going to be cooked in with your meat or tofu, and the sliced is going to be used to make sort of a quick pickle onion. So we can go ahead and get started with that. So 1/2 cup diced, and probably 1/4 to 1/2, depending on how much you like pickled onion, is going to be used for the pickled onion.
Do you know that we can't see what you're doing? We only see your wrist. We don't see how you're preparing the food. Is the camera, your camera, able to go down? Just curious.
I'm able to see it.
You are able to see it?
I can't see your cutting board or anything. That's weird.
I think it might be because of you're on your phone. If
okay.
anyone else is having trouble with that, can you let us know? Because my screen is showing both.
Okay, it could be just because I'm on a phone. I'll listen.
Okay. So I'm just dicing that red onion. This is about 1/2 cup here. 1/2 cup kind of overfills my hand. I know that just a little bit. And so this is, I'm going to keep that to the side. Don't need that just a second. And then I'm going to get a 1/4 cup ready to be sliced. You can leave thicker onion slices for this, but just because today you're trying to finish your meal in about an hour, I would cut them a little bit thinner than normal. Thicker makes more crunchy, but thinner makes it quicker into your mouth. So for today, let's go thin. And you can slice it however you like to slice your onions. So here's what mine are going to be looking like. I'll show them in both screens so everyone can see. Just thin onion. And those I'm going to put in a separate bowl off to the side. Okay. So, and pretty soon your hot onion or your hot water should be finishing up, and we're going to use that on top of these onions. And this is such a good tip for quick pickling, and it really, using hot water really helps remove some of the intense allium flavors that you get, that kind of burning in your chest when you have raw onion, because this isn't cooked, but it's going to have hot water on it. So I've got about 1/4 cup. I'm just splitting it all up. And let's check in and see if everyone's doing okay with that part. I'm crying a little bit, but not that bad. Onions are pretty tough on my body. All right, so I've got my onions in a bowl. This is a small bowl, and that's just fine. And this is the sliced onion. And now I'm going to go ahead and get out some other ingredients. But first, my rice water is telling me that it's ready to get some rice in it. Quick stir. And I'm going to turn it on low. Okay, so you're going to want to use 1/2 cup of water for this sort of solution that we're going to be pickling our onions in. I have a 1/4 cup here, so I'm going to do 2 of those, but 1/2 cup, pouring right over the top of the onions. And that's all you need. And then we are going to add some vinegar. So I'm going to use apple cider today, but white vinegar, white wine vinegar, any kind of vinegar that you like except for balsamic would be great to do this. And depending on how vinegary you like your pickles, you can do anywhere from 2 tablespoons to 6 tablespoons. I'm going to do 4. I like vinegary pickles. But feel free, if you're not crazy about it, just do 2. That's going to help break down those onions even further, make them easier to digest and a little less tough. On your chest and swallowing those. All right, so got my vinegar in there, and this isn't on the recipe, but just an idea. Because you're making pickled onions, you can do whatever you want to do. Whatever spices you really like, you can add that to it. So if you normally make your pickles with dill, throw some in there. If you normally make it with whole peppercorns, throw some in there. They're not going to be pickling for that long, so I like to use ground spices, but I'll use cumin, turmeric. Those things are pretty tasty in your whatever spices you have on hand, even garlic powder. I'm going to put in just a dash of this, and I just like to have that extra flavor, but there's no need. If you want to do sweet pickled onions, I highly suggest adding some sugar in there, and that makes them pretty tasty too. You can also, something that I've learned accelerates this process a little bit, is adding a pinch of salt. And then what you're going to do is go ahead and forget about these for a while, but don't let me forget to put them on when we're plating, because that's always a detail I forget. So I'm going to stick these in the fridge and just let them hang out in this solution for a while. Okay. And I'm going to set a timer for my rice because it probably got back up to boil. Hopefully yours probably still has a few minutes left, but don't forget to check on that rice. All right. And now we start the fun part. So if you have beef and or tofu, the steps are going to be pretty much the same here, just one added step for tofu. But the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and take a couple tablespoons of olive oil and put them into your pan. Now you'll notice that I'm doing this for 2 because I'm going to make tofu and beef. So, and I'm going to move this to a sort of a medium low heat, more on the medium side. So 2 tablespoons of olive oil on a medium low heat, more on the medium side. Okay. And medium, and I'm good. And so we're going to use our onions, and we're going to put those in I'm going to split mine in half just so I have a little for each dish. But you're going to put all your onions into that pan in that olive oil. And we're going to start to cook those a little bit. I might even chop up some more if I have a little time. Now, some places actually serve the onion raw inside of the dish instead of cooking it like this with the tofu or meat. And because we've already done some pickled onions, I'm not going to do that because I think we're going to have enough of that like sort of raw onion taste. So we're going to actually cook the rest of these in with the dish. And I'm just cutting up a little more because I've got 2. And then now we're going to get our garlic ready. That's not going to go in right away. We don't want to burn it. It's very easy to burn garlic. So we'll get chopping. And you're just going to use 2 or 3 cloves. I think with garlic, the more the merrier. I can never get enough of it. But if you're sensitive to it, just do 1. If you love it like me, you can do 4 if you want. I'm going to get all my cloves peeled here. And guys, please do interject, ask questions if you're curious, or share something that you've learned that might be helpful in this process. We love to hear from you. I am using the back of my knife safely with my hands out of the way to push down and crush the garlic clove. And that's going to help us remove those skins really easily. Like that. If you don't want to use a knife, you can use your palm. Just apply pressure from your top hand onto a flat bottom hand. Same process. And you can also, you can use a rolling pin or anything you'd like to use. And usually you can get the skin off in one piece. Now, don't forget, I'm doing extra garlic because I've got 2 dishes here. And so I'm not seeing any action on my pan yet, and that's okay. And that's just because it's only going to medium low heat. And we want that slow sweating to happen with those onions. Okay. And if you have a food processor, by all means, go at it if you don't feel like chopping all this garlic. For me, it just makes more dishes. Sometimes I don't like to do that.
I have one of those little Ninja mini choppers that I bought for like $9.99, 10 years ago on some clearance table. It's one of the most used items in my kitchen.
That's wonderful. I mean, those
I love
have. I think a lot of folks in Farm to Family program that we have received those Ninja bullets, and I got to use one in there. They are pretty nice. They're really easy to clean. So we're going to mince this garlic. Just cut it as small as you can, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be even. We're cooking it. And just like the onion, another way of making this dish is actually leaving this raw. And it's got a different type of spice when you have a lot of raw garlic, but it's really good. And you can imagine that this dish full of lime juice and hot peppers and raw alliums would be super healthy. It still is, though. It's a very healthy dish. Lots of fresh stuff. So I'm almost done.
Hey, look at the chat, Brooke.
Oh, absolutely. You can totally add. That was a great question. So Alexander wrote, can we add a little turmeric to the tofu to make it a more appealing color? Heck yes. You can add turmeric. You can add a little curry. Now, just keep in mind, you don't want to put in anything too overpowering, but I think that is totally, if you put in a tablespoon or maybe a half tablespoon of those things, that would be awesome. The color is still, the dish itself is just, once you mix everything together, it's like so beautiful that you don't even need it. But I think since we don't have anything yellow going on, it would be really cool to see that with the tofu dish. So I'm getting my garlic chopped and I'm not quite ready to put it in. I'm going to let my onions cook for 3 to 4 more minutes before I decide to add this garlic in there. And in the meantime, I'm going to show folks who have tofu how we're going to be breaking that up and dealing with that. So one of the tricks I learned as a cook at a vegan restaurant, if you want the spongiest and like best fried tofu ever, which we're not doing for this dish, but I want to share it, you should freeze the tofu. You can freeze it in the original container it comes in. And then as it unthaws, you're going to squeeze out all the extra. You can even break it into pieces to make it easier, but you're going to squeeze out all the water. And that makes tofu fry so much better. So if you're looking for a fried tofu dish, that's the answer. But right now we are just trying to get out as much water as we can. So I break it into smaller chunks to make it easier. And you can use a paper towel, you can use a cheesecloth, or you can just be old-fashioned like me and use your hands. And
have you ever done it between 2 plates with a weight on it?
Oh, that's such a good idea.
That's how I've done. Like, it's more long term. You just put it between 2 small dishes, put a big heavy jar on it, and it just really pushes the water out. Because I love baking tofu.
Yeah, tofu is such an amazing protein.
I never even thought to do it with my hands. It's funny.
I kind of do it with my hands. I love that. I just love using my hands. All right, so I'm straining out all that extra water, and then that kind of makes the next part of this process a lot easier because we're just trying to crumble that tofu. If you've never worked with tofu before, it crumbles very easily. You're gonna just give it, I'll show you in 1 second. I'm gonna rinse this last piece out. And I'm starting to hear some noise from my onions, so you can keep stirring if you'd like. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna use our hands and we're gonna just basically mash up that tofu into pieces. So it's kind of going to have the consistency of a ground meat. Getting that all smushed up. Now, one option with this dish, if you ever make it in the future, is that you can take whatever the marinade that we're working with, like the soy sauce. If you're still going to use fish sauce, you can use that. You can use, a little soy sauce, vinegar, chili, and you can marinate this mixture in that, and it'll really take up a lot of the flavors even more. But for this, it's still going to be plenty of powerful, yummy, delicious, fresh flavors. So I've got my crumbled tofu, and that's ready to go. I'm going to give my hands a rinse. And I'm over here to check on all of my onions. So if you're still not seeing much action, you can turn the heat up a little bit. My cast iron pan is conducting heat a lot more, even though they're on the same setting. And you're going to let your onions sweat for a little. And I'm going to take a moment to get myself cleaned up while those continue to cook. So much of this dish is going to be cutting, little cooking, a lot of cutting. Now, as I mentioned before, one option is to use cabbage leaves. Like you could take whatever you make for your larb, whether it's tofu or beef, and you could wrap that.
Alexandra asked if she can substitute the red peppers for radish.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I wouldn't go to the red, are they bell peppers or a red cabbage? Yes, you totally can. That's if you don't like radishes, leave them out. And this is just like I mentioned before, like this is this dish, you can't really go wrong. It's like making a salad. So substitute in things that you like better, use less of some things, more of others. That's totally fine. Use your intuition about what you like the best. Okay, my onions are doing a little better now on a little higher heat. Right. Okay, so the next steps that we're planning for are we're going to put our garlic. I'm going to split mine in both pans. Going to cook the garlic for 2-3 minutes. At that point, we're going to add in either our beef or tofu, or in my case, both. So you can take your broken up tofu mixture, mix it into the pan if you're already ahead of me, or your beef, which I need to grab mine. Okay, so if you have beef, I let mine sit in a bowl for a while just so I can get the excess moisture out. So I'm going to dump that. And then this is going to go straight in my pan after the garlic has cooked. Get my hands ready. Folks, I always encourage people to try growing herbs on their own. Even if you don't have a backyard or a garden, you can grow basil and mint in a pot on your window, and having access to those herbs in bulk makes these dishes so amazing. Okay, it's time for me to add garlic. I'm going to do half and half on my pan. And you're going to stay on top of the garlic. It's not like onions. It doesn't have as much to sweat. It burns easily. So I'm going to make sure I stir that in. I'm still on medium heat. If you can't give that much attention to it, move it out of the center, move it along the sides of your pan. That'll be better. And at this point, either before or after you dump your meat, we are going to season with salt and pepper, whether it's for tofu or for beef. I'm going to get that on the ready. Where's my salt? There it is. Okay. And now if you choose to use pepper, You can use flaked red pepper, and that way you know how much you like of it. Or you can take risks like I like to and use whatever hot peppers come in your CSA. And just to play it safe, I know that I'm using a half of this red pepper here, and then I'm going to use, whatever other peppers you have on hand are great to add to this salad. If you take the seeds out, it's going to be less hot. So that's always a good choice if you're unsure about how hot your dish is going to be. So I'm removing seeds. And then I'm going to actually chop up all this red pepper here. These are not bell peppers, they're hot peppers. And make sure you wash your hands after touching them or wear gloves when preparing them, because that can travel to your eyes or anything else you touch.
Are the jalapenos the same, like to be used the same, or does that have a different use?
I would use, you can totally use your jalapeno for that. I'm not sure what came in everyone's kits, but I would absolutely use jalapeno. You can use the whole thing. Usually they're not as hot. All right, so my garlic is starting to get a little brown. So now is a great time. If you're not done chopping your pepper, you can add in your tofu or meat, and that's going to help spread the heat out. I'm going to chop up my pepper really quick. And I'm just making a tiny dice, basically. I'll show you on the camera. See. Then add in some hot pepper on both sides, both hands. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in my tofu and or beef if that's what you got. Now, beef generally takes about 10 minutes to cook. I would say that it's about this time for the tofu. It's not going to be bad if it's undercooked, but it's nice to have it pretty firm. So, excellent. And now it's time for the meat. So I got my meat in here. I'm going to take my meat and kind of splay it out over the pan. Make sure that I'm breaking up the clump. And if you need to buy yourself more time, like me in this situation where I'm cooking 2 dishes, just turn the meat down. It's not going to hurt anything. And then I'm going to add my tofu. Excellent. So I would say that the tofu can go up a little bit higher than the meat but I'm still staying on medium, like a little bit over medium heat. But I would keep the beef on a medium to medium low. Okay. All right, so that's looking good.
You have a fire? Oh my God, I just heard a crackle. Wow.
And just because I have a moment, I'm going to finish cutting up this pepper, which isn't as hot of a pepper, so I'm going to put it in a little bit of chunks. Now, inside of your CSAs, your DIY kit, did you guys get radish greens? If anyone's in their camera, give me a thumbs up or tell me if you got radish greens.
I got mixed greens and what looks like basil.
Well, when you got radishes, did they still have their greens on them?
No. I got just three ungreened radishes.
If you ever find yourself in a situation that you're like, I don't know what to do with these radish greens, I have nothing I want to do with them, you can throw those kind of bittery greens in with the dish like this while the meat or tofu is cooking. And it's super, super good. It's a great use of them. So I'm going to add a few just because I don't want them to go to waste. Radish greens can be a little bit like prickly. And so when they're cooked, that goes away, kind of like with stinging nettles. But I like to try to get a good use of everything in there. Brings a little more color to the dish too. All right, so we've got our tofu and or meat cooking. Making sure to stir it every once in a while and check on it. And I'm gonna season with salt and pepper on both of them. This is to taste, however much you'd like. Now, one thing that's very important is that if you're using fish sauce and soy sauce, you don't want to add as much salt as you normally would, because both of those are made up of massive amounts of salt. Fish sauce is basically salted fish that soaks for a very long time and ferments. So there's a ton of salt. And soy sauce, obviously, it's salted wheat that ferments for a very long time. So you don't want to add in as much as normal. But I'm going to just do a pinch, a small pinch, and I can show you. Just a pinch. 1 and 2. Okay. So I got salt and pepper on my dishes. I don't remember if I peppered my beef, but I don't mind extra pepper. Okay. Great. How's everyone doing? I know we've been moving pretty quick through all this. Pace feeling okay? If I hear nothing, I will assume we're doing well. All right.
I'm having a great time.
That makes
I'm
me
adding more peppers now. It's not hot enough.
good. Okay. You can always add flaked pepper too if you don't have enough.
Oh, yeah.
So we've salt and peppered our tofu or beef. And now I want to point out, if you have beef, the recipe calls for you to drain the fat. I think most people do this, but I do not do this. I love the fat. I want to keep that. I think it provides extra juice and excellent juice for the rice. So use your discretion. That's my rice going off. If you don't love having extra fat, or you're looking to make the meal a little bit more lean, then you can use a strainer, a fine mesh strainer, preferably one bigger than this, and you can drain that fat, but you don't want to put it right in your sink. You will want to drain it into a bowl, let it harden, then throw it away. All right, so my timer is up on my rice, but it still needs a few minutes. I'm going to leave that on, maybe give it 4 more minutes. And I'm going to take this moment to stir. And I'm starting to get some really good smells, and our sauces haven't even been put in there yet. So that's exciting. Now, if you're cooking tofu and your pan seems a little bit dry, just go ahead and add some more oil. I think that happens a little bit more with tofu than with the beef because it doesn't have a natural fat. All right. Let's prep our cucumbers, okay? This is just kind of a fun opportunity because the salad can be so beautiful. You can cut it however you want. I always love to show, this is like one of the quickest ways to cut cucumbers. So I always show people it is I'll cut it in half and then I'll go in half the other way so that when you slice, you can do it as thin or thick as you'd like, but you already have 4 pieces. I like to make things in Larb salad small. I like to cut the lettuce small if I have time to. I like to cut the radishes small and the cucumbers because it kind of matches so that every bite you get has like a little bit of tofu or beef and a little bit of cucumber and radish. So that's one option.
Did you peel your cucumber or not?
I did not.
You did
That
not.
is
Okay.
totally a choice for you. If
Can
you
you
like,
hold it up so I can see how thin you're cutting them, your cucumbers? I'm sorry.
oh, let's see. You see it? You know
I
which
see your
one
hand. Yeah, that's perfect. So
Okay.
you're slicing them. Okay.
I'm slicing them. Yep.
Got
And
it.
you can really play with your knife
Oh, no.
skills. Try to get really thin slices if you'd like, or if you're just like, I just want to get this done, just cut it however you'd like. It doesn't really matter. I sometimes like to matchstick mine. So that I would cut it into medallions and then I would kind of stack them on top of each other. And then I would go let's see if you can see this. Yeah, I would cut little matchsticks out of that. Those are like my favorite way to have them in lard, but it really doesn't matter. You can just move through it, do it the quick way like I like. Cut it in half again, and then give them a chop. And if you're ahead of me, you can do your whole cucumber. If you like cucumber, use the whole thing. If you're not crazy about it, use half. I'm finishing getting that half chopped. And I'm going to pause to check on my stuff. So much of cooking is, you know, kind of having something in the back of your mind that you got to check on things. Looking pretty good. My tofu does not need extra oil, but yours might, so think about that. And my beef is really starting to bring some juices and fat out. I like to see that. I'm going to make sure that some of the red meat gets in the middle so it's thoroughly cooked. And my onions are still like a purpley red color. So they're not going to be as cooked as many onion dishes, and that's good for this dish. And because my tofu is cooking a little faster and I want it to all time out, I'm moving mine to low, but you don't need to do that. So it's on low now. All right, let's finish up with our cucumber. You can even cut it in 6s or 8s if you want to make it even smaller. Okay. There we go. All right. And next we can you can move on to your scallions, you can move on to your radishes, whatever you'd like. And I pulled out, or I didn't, but I would like to pull out a plate or a bowl that I'm going to keep all of my vegetables in until I'm ready. So here's a nice bowl. Moving those into there. Clean up my cutting board for myself, and I'll get started on the radish. You really only need 1 or 2 radishes. These are actually really nice radishes, and they're not too pungent or spicy, so they're great for the dish, but they've got everything we need. And yeah, I'm just going to do 2. And I'm going to turn off my rice. It's done. So you're going to cut the tail end. You don't need that. The root hairs. You can peel your radish if you'd like. I think that loses a lot of the beautiful color and a lot of the nutrients from fruits and vegetables. That the most nutrients we get are often in the skin, and that's a lot of where the microorganisms are and that we want for our gut that help us digest these foods. And because this is not going to be cooked, I think having that extra benefit of keeping those around is worth it. So I always like to keep the skin if it's digestible. I sliced my radish. You could slice it really thin if you'd like, and beautiful, or you could slice it medium thickness. This, I always have trouble with that. This is a stack. And then I'm going to matchstick them. Same thing as before with the cucumbers that we looked at. Okay, and I'm going to do that with both my radishes. And you can go ahead and toss those straight into the bowl with your cucumbers. All right. Doing great on time. It's 5:42, so we'll be finished just in time. And yeah, if you're ahead of us, take this opportunity to work on your knife skills, see how thin you can fillet your radish, try out whatever you'd like to. Try not to drop your radish on the floor like I did. Compost. And stir. This is my first time trying to stir with 2 hands, and it's not successful. And my beef is getting pretty close to being done. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on low heat as well, like a medium low, closer to low. Okay. And let's finish those reddish. Beautiful. We're gonna cut up our scallions, get our herbs chopped and prepped. I think y'all have basil, but some of you might have cilantro. I'm not positive. And then we'll make our final sauce and we'll be plating in no time. Okay. So I'm gonna use 3 to 4 scallions. This is the raw onion taste that we get.
Love has a question. Can we do basil and cilantro?
Absolutely. I was just going to say, I went to my garden, I picked basil, I picked cilantro, and I picked mint. I love cramming as many herbs as possible into this dish. So feel free to do that. And I think the more the merrier. And if you ever recreate this dish again, maybe you can grab some of those things and add them on. So I'm going to use every part of the scallion except for the very end tip and the root. Although I've seen people regrow these roots. If you put a little toothpick in them and stick them in water, it will regrow some shoots. Fun project if you have kids. And I'm just going to medallion these really nice and thin. I do use the green. I do use the white, but I do peel off any like crusty, leathery feeling or like harder skins. I'm a huge fan of scallions. I use them in like all of my salad dressings. I love to make scallion potato pancakes. Always use them when I'm cooking shrimp. Those are going to go into our bowl as well, which I accidentally just put. There we go.
Can I ask, are you mixing all of these toppings in one bowl or are you sort of keeping them in separate piles?
I'm just mixing them up because we're going to mix this whole dish, all the vegetables with your meat or tofu. That's a great question.
Because I've been keeping them separate on a plate because I wasn't quite sure if they were. Nope. Okay, so they're all one big salad. Thank you.
Yep. And I'm not using the tips. Nothing wrong with them. It's just I have plenty of scallions. So I've got scallions, radishes, and cucumbers all in a bowl. All right, this is looking great. Beef is looking great. If yours meat is done because you had a higher heat, you can turn it off. It doesn't have to be hot for this dish. Same with your tofu. Okay. All right, so now we are going to get our herbs ready. And that's a fairly easy process. I have cilantro, basil, and mint. Use whatever you like. And I use the stems. If you use the stems, you just want to cut them really small and you don't want to use stems that are super hard. But if you taste it, it has so much of the flavor of the cilantro. I also used to take the stems of basil and cilantro. If I was just using the leaves, I would take these and put them in vinegar and you'd make like herbal infused vinegars that are really delicious for salads and stuff. So my method is I like to ball it all up as much as possible and then cut as thin as possible. So I'm just making really thin shreds or cuts. Okay, so this is my cilantro that I'm doing. It would be the same for the mint and the basil. And guess what? This can also go directly into that vegetable bowl.
Yeah. Don't forget your pickled onions. Just throwing it out there.
Thank you. I probably will. You're going to have to tell me again, Trouble, because they're in the fridge. They're out of sight, out of mind when it comes to.
Do they go on the very top at the end?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm moving on to my basil. Great ways to keep basil in good condition If it still has stems on it, you can stick it in a glass with water at the bottom, so the stems are dipping into the water, and then put a plastic or Ziploc bag or something around the leaves. That keeps it preserved for a long time. I also sometimes just put a paper towel into a Ziploc bag and put it in the fridge. If it doesn't have stems, especially because you don't want to just stick the whole plant into the water. And this, guys, can be a really, it can be a thin chop, it can be a rough chop. Doesn't really matter. The herbs are going to shrink when they hit the warm meat and tofu. I'm going to finish off the rest of my herbs. Here we go. And it's probably smelling really yummy in your kitchen right now.
They have such a fresh smell, all these chopped veggies and herbs together. I just went and stuck it under my wife's nose.
Yeah, it's kind of reminds me of spring rolls a lot too, like using all these herbs and plants in your cooking. It's such a nice way to eat and design a cuisine. All right, so that's all going in my bowl. And you're gonna need just one more bowl today. I'm gonna give a stir to everyone. If you want to taste a little bit of your tofu or beef and decide if you want a little more heat, go for it. You can add like pepper or cayenne or something if you like it hot. Okay. Looking good. Okay. All right, so I've got my bowl of delicious smelling things. And now we're going to make the most important part to me. This is going to be our sauce that we're going to use for the dish. Now, I'm going to be making 2 times the amount. So just keep that in mind and listen for the amounts of things I'm going to use. I'm going to say them, but it's going to be reflective of what your recipe is. So first, we're going to do 4 to 5 tablespoons of lime juice. I'm going to say that go for 5, go for 6, go for 7. I love having extra juice. If you like lime juice, go nuts on it. So you're going to do 4 to 5 tablespoons. You can also juice your limes yourself. I'm going to use this because I'm using a lot. And you're going to put this into a bowl. If you want your tofu to get a little crispy, go ahead and turn up the heat at the very end, but make sure you can keep eyes on it. Now, just reminding you that I am doubling my recipe, so I need a little more. Okay, so I did 8 tablespoons. All right, and then you're either going to use soy sauce or fish sauce, depending on your dietary preferences. I brought some soy sauce out just in case, but I'm going to do fish sauce for both of mine because it's a little bit easier for me to make 1 bowl of this with the time we have. And you're going to use 2 tablespoons of fish sauce. Again, just think about if you're not crazy about it and you're nervous, use 1, use half of 1, but I really think it makes the dish. These pour out like crazy. Keep that in mind. So be very gentle when you're doing it because the pour is so large. So I'm putting 4 because I have 2 times the amount, but you're just going to do 2. And then we're going to do a teaspoon of brown sugar. The recipe calls for a teaspoon. Personally, when I make it, I put a full tablespoon of brown sugar in. If you're looking to lower your sugar intake, don't do what I do. But if you feel like, I want to try it out and I don't have issues with sugar and I'm not trying to lower how much sugar is in my life, I say go for a tablespoon. So I'm going to use brown sugar. You can use honey, you can use maple syrup, you can use regular sugar. And I also brought something else out. Is Palm sugar is traditionally used, and palm sugar often comes in like a little mold, and you scrape it off the sides, and it smells more like molasses, and that's often used in Thai, Laotian, Vietnamese cooking, and just something to think about. But we're going to use 1 lightly packed tablespoon of brown sugar or regular sugar. I'm using 2 because I'm making 2. And then we're going to give it a stir. And folks, now is a great time to add more red pepper flakes. You could put them directly into here if you're thinking that you're going to want some more heat in this dish. Okay, stir it so that quite vigorously until the sugar dissolves. All right, looking good. Getting stuff all over the floor. My dog's going to be happy today. All right, and I'm going to leave these on pretty low heat until I'm ready to serve. But this salad can also be served. You can bring it for lunch tomorrow and serve it completely cold, and it's still delicious. So I've got my sugars pretty much all dissolved. And now, don't forget to grab your pickled onions out of the fridge. Can also give those a stir. I'm going to do that myself. Where did I just, there we go. Okay, so the final moment, I'm going to get my station cleared up a little bit, and I'm going to start to plate. And one of the things that I really like to do when I'm plating dishes with rice or for larb is, hold on one sec. First, turn off your pan. I like to take my rice and use whatever size ladle I have. I always get, when I go out to Vietnamese restaurants, they always serve it like this, and it's so beautiful to me. That's so simple. And I'm going to use the scoop to press the rice in. And then you can either tilt your plate or whatever feels the easiest. And so I've got this like little perfect, adorable rice ball. Totally not necessary. And then I'm going to add either meat or tofu, whatever I'm going to have. So I'm going to go with some tofu. You can sprinkle it on the side and like make a creation, or you can put it right on top, or you can do both. And before, if you're not quite where I am, there's 2 ways to do this. You can take your tofu, take all your vegetables, mix them all together with the sauce. Or if you have folks you're eating with who might not want that sauce, you can do what I'm doing. So I'm going to mix all my vegetables together in that bowl. And I'm going to sprinkle those on top too, and give yourself a hefty amount of those. You can really use a lot. Beautiful. Then I'm going to drizzle some of my sauce on. Again, you can just take your tofu, if you only have tofu, take your greens, pour those together, mix them all up together and pour all your sauce in, or you can do what I'm doing. I know not everyone loves fish sauce in my house, so I'm just going to sprinkle my sauce on top and over my rice. And then I'm going to add some of my pickled onion, which has like a beautiful color from the spices that I used. I've also seen people serve this with like a hard fried egg on top. Do what you'd like to do. And voila, we've got our Thai larb salad. And you'll do the same thing if you had beef too. All right, I hope everyone enjoyed this. If you have questions, you think of them afterwards, if you're not making the recipe right now, please feel free to send me an email. My email is brooke@justfruits.org. Oh, beautiful. Thank you
Look.
for sharing, Trouble. Excited? Great. I know Trouble is making a lamb version of this. Please do go ahead, send me an email with questions. Also, folks, if you enjoyed this workshop or you didn't enjoy this workshop, either way, we ask you to please fill out those surveys that we send out. They're really helpful in letting us know what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong and how to make it more meaningful for you. We also love to get your suggestions on recipes. I hope everyone enjoys their dinner tonight. We literally finished just on time, so I hope it's tasty and delicious. And please share with us if you like the recipe. I'd love to hear it.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Enjoy your evenings.